야, 니 대랑가서 강연센 나더니다. Bodhicitta, 자위동과 주지에서니 되니다. 가서 작동 주지가 거는 이마더니다. 그 Bodhicitta 시야레스.
And so today the subject of the teachings is the 14 root downfalls of the Vajrayana, and so I will give a brief explanation of these root downfalls.
아니 작동 주진의 가서는 정서부터서 법정지나 대배 약보를 transons 말하려서나 말하고 창마대가서는 흥안염스는 게 인색이로 받는 근데 그래서 다른 얘기가 있으나 상하 Bodhicitta 해야 되냐면서 랭켄들이 임바이나 근데 상하 Bodhicitta 해야 되겠더니 단식을 받에 간지진데 와 되겠다는 가서는 또 상마 서부 차송바이나 니 수수 냠는데 되는 서부 차바레스 니 냠는다 판토고요레스 제가 톡스지로 왔더니 상하서야 돼 그지 원시 추시로 왔더니 칠라서 과공을 주선들이 시다리나더니 지 담식서야 되겠더니 쇼대 간지지 임바요 하마고 송바이나 그때게 왔더니 준다니 바야 뭐지 되고요레스 근데 다스더니 컨셉을 다텔라더니 근데 다리 자동 주신 되게 코텔라더니 저런 속에서 하고네 데라 접종제 선바이나 되게더니 담을 거더니 판도코를 했더니 정도에서.
And so I really feel it's quite important for us all to study the 14 root downfalls and to know about them as we are all tantric practitioners, practitioners of the greater vehicle of the secret mantra. And as that's the case, then it is really important that we understand these sacred commitments, these tantric pledges that we enter into. It's really important that we know them, for if we don't know them, then we can then act in a way that will bring about faults. There could be some problems. So it's very important that we know these 14 root downfalls, and I feel that if you can study them and learn them, that it will be very beneficial for you.
근데 인디 알아서 그 다른 냠선이야 그 람텔라 근데 람 우지다 아니 람그 진인 근데 요레스 근데 알아서 가서나 람 우텔라 근데 식탑 거봐 람 우텔라 식탑 거를 맞춰서 왔더니 람그 진인데라 식송바이나 람그 진인데 람레베스나 무니시나 람그 진인데 람마라 왔더니 근데 인터넷상 알아서 왔더니 상하도지 타페게 되니 가서나 람 우니텔라 식들다는데 인가랑 속가서 나타니 컨셉으로 상황 Bodhicitta 게 좀 그런 문이 되라 시근데다 다른 철로라 나데 때때 가서 나타니 하고 그랬어. 철로라데 고비 철로라. 좀 그렇게 철로 좀 그렇게는 하고요. 상황 Bodhicitta 좀 그렇게 뭔가 그때는 나가 당한 거 보니 되는 거 나가 시공데 때 막 좀 그래거든. 만달라 하고 소리. 어때 좀 그래. 되는 거 라운 같은 거에서는 우라 마시기한테 철로라 받네. 철로라. 그 라운 게 지금한테 철로라 하고 소리. 들으랬어.
And so the path of practice that we aim to enter can be the authentic and true path of practice, or the mere reflection of a path, really a facsimile of a path, kind of a false path. And as practitioners of the great vehicle of the secret mantra, then we look to enter this authentic path, this true path, the real path. Is that which is just a mere reflection of a path the actual and true path? No, it's not. And as practitioners of the secret mantra, then we look to enter the authentic path, practice within the mandala, rather than taking the mere reflection of a path which is actually outside of the mandala.
아니가 저런 속에 그 자동 주시는데 이거 거다다니 법정지네. 근데 저 상바이나더니 다른 소소상한 Bodhicitta 남 운이되라 신들다면 되겠어. 남 운이되라 신들다 영나가 남 같은 가서는 더 진인나가 신들. 영나 남 그치로라 나게. 그래서 소소가 하고도 그랬어.
'And so the path of practice that we aim to enter can be the authentic path, And through studying these 14 root downfalls and understanding them well, then one will enter the real path, the authentic path, be on the inner part of the mandala, rather than being that mere reflection of a practitioner on the path, which would be outside of the mandala.
Ningi Sangha Dorji Thapa Nyamsi Lengi Yo Sene Tene Kansa Gura Tene Talo Mambo Chigla Kali Jamnira Tene Chidalina Ane Soso Karsana Lamga Zinin Chiganangla Tene Laks Desomba Ina Tate Kansa Gura Tene Shindani Pangba Tene Res or Tene Nitasu Tene Masu Sangha Dorji Thapa Sayatega Lam Kanda Chigri Soso Be Nyamnante Uni Tene Karsang Sangha Dorji Thapa Lam Dela Shik Tagun Damande Uni Soso Sangha Dorji Thapa Nga Nyamsi Lenken Chigre Da Do Nyamsi Lenken Chigre Yangla Nyamnem Bachi Chaka Mundigda Tuzota Karsana Tene Hakubu Rest.
And so, as practitioners on this Vajrayana path, we need to know what this real path is. We have to understand how to actually enter the path in an authentic way, rather than just through the outer appearance of doing so. What a shame it would be for us to be practitioners and those who study the Mantrayana as study, but then don't exactly quite enter it in a way where we really entered it authentically. It would be, such a shame. So through understanding these 14 root downfalls, for example, then one can then determine whether one has truly entered this Vajrayana path, or one is kind of on the side, kind of as just an outer appearance. So one will be able to determine that, and one should be able to determine that.
Porque the Dorji Tapa Zavi Tomba, Yambajan Jabana Chansalo, Knitang Lama, Shapipa Moratin, Zavi Tomba, Jivin, Yili Somba Shabrashase.
And so now in our text, I pay homage to the youthful Manjushri. With deep faith I bow at the lotus feet of the Guru. I will now explain the 14 root downfalls as taught in the Tantras.
That's don't choose the Kani Somba, who Jikunani Somba, Tendani Martinita, Didali, Tap the Witching, and also Yaman Battles of Hakoya Gichita, Tap the Witching it and then Dinitini, Shabayan Somba.
And so now, in this text, it's in this commentary text on the 14 root downfalls, it is put together, composed in a way that one can easily understand. It's a very brief, a very concise text, so that one can easily understand these 14 root downfalls of the Vajrayana, as it is as stated in this line. I will now explain the 14 root downfalls as taught in the Tantras. And now in the text. Since it is taught that the cities of the Vajra holders follow after the spiritual master, to hold contempt for the master is taught as the first root downfall. Openly admit and confess to have had the first fault.
that menshik wang ni troshik chil la sopa tane tendra uga kalsana tane shidali na tane soso tobi dali na ta tendra ji nyamnan tane namken sama kalsana tane durjin zamba segyer durjin zamba indi ta tane kanso nga nyam salen kai na ni ko nga durjin zamba tane tane ta pachir sena mandriba chi mares.
And then we have this this term, the Vajra holders, and so the Vajra holders, this term is referring to those that are practitioners of the Tantra. tantric practitioners, those who have received empowerment and instruction, tantric instructions, and so on. Once those have been received, then one has entered into this tantra, and those also, this refers to the those that have received these, the tantric practitioners.
Yeah, that the Araso Nanyam selling Lamla she wanted to also via the character way. Also Mudub the way rest. But also Mudub Toria Vicheta. The name Mudub Tetany, Rangila Toria, Vicheta Tangaso, concept Michuniam slang yours.
And why is it, as practitioners, that we practice along this Vajrayana path? We practice in order to gain the spiritual accomplishments, to gain the siddhis, to gain these attributes in our mind stream.
Mudu de la Garsana, number Nivers, Tamong Mudu, say a Gitan, consider that Chotamong Mudu Nis and the Nikan Choko Mudu, that Tamong Mudus and Mudu de Latin, number Nisi, your genetic grace.
And as it says in our text, the siddhis, these siddhis or spiritual accomplishments can be classified as the common siddhis and the extraordinary siddhis.
Oh yeah, Tandana Karsana, Karasombares, and Mudu open Jim Johnson's. The Tango Mudu Tetany, that open Konagis and Angres and the Sombares. They will Mudu Tekars and Tamungu Mudu Las Opares and Temares. They can tactic them Tamungu Mudu Las Opatani, Edom Denayang, Tamungu Mudu Tentavires. Then they ended us negative and Mudu open Jim Johnson, they are then tacking Choco Mudu La Cogres. Choco Mudu say at the countries and Sanjigo Compound. Sangngak Compound say at the Lama Gavishini Martina Tangna, Jews Sangngak Compound say at the Tobia Ures and the Yomares, the maybe Jim Sanger, and Mudus open Jim Johnson say at the Tarting Choco Mudu de la Coco Grace.
And so it's said that these siddhis or spiritual accomplishments follow after the spiritual master. They come from the spiritual master. And we can receive the ordinary and common siddhis through our accomplishment of the Yidam deities. But it's said to receive the extraordinary siddhis, the extraordinary accomplishment of the obtainment of Buddhahood, that one needs to rely on the spiritual master. It said there is no obtainment of Buddhahood without relying on the spiritual master.
Oh yeah, and that's a cousin that she ran that Choco Mudu say at the Kanla Conat and Sangngak Compound and Choco Mudu Saviors. Then the win Choco Mudu Topper Shebala, any Counting Grace and any Lama Gavishina, Dinitana, and Italy Constable, Yamsil and it had to Sangngak Compound Tobu Grace. Then they ended us at the constable. Sanji in Nayang, Sangngak do Sangngak Compound, say at the Kanla, then you jump by not. And Lama Givishin in Givishin in, and they take it in the Dama Lamyam Subang, and they sound you compound to Topat and Rimares.
So, this supreme accomplishment of Buddhahood, how do we attain it? On what do we rely, on what do we depend on to obtain this supreme accomplishment? Well, we rely on the kind spiritual master. In order to gain Buddhahood. So actually, if we think about it, where does Buddhahood come from? What is the source of Buddhahood? The source of Buddhahood is relying on the spiritual master, relying on the pith instructions, the oral instructions of the master, and that is what leads to Buddhahood.
Lama may be Korana, Sanji Javi Mayam. Lama may be Sanji said to Eurobesena, then it is Yomares. Then Natasotanita, Sanji, who commands at the Kala, then Jomares and Atene, Lama Givishin in the Denita Jomares, is only 20 years. The Jimson Lama may be Korana, and Lama may be Mula, and Sanji said to Eurobesena, the Yomares. Then they indicate us at any possibility. Lama did in its own age that is Somares.
And this is also stated in the sutras. It's stated in the sutras that before, without any lama, before there were any lamas, there was no accomplishment of Buddhahood. And so this again is pointing to where does Buddhahood come from? What is the origin? What is the source? As it is said in the sutras, before there was the Buddha, without the spiritual master, then there is no accomplishment of Buddhahood. So this is pointing to the fact that actually our spiritual masters are the principle, to the path.
Karwa tong sangji jang lama tangla teni jongse. Teni karwa tong sangji tozo tamji kangla teni dali jongbares. Kangla teni dali na teni karzang sangji tozo jongbares na tozo teni lama gishi ni la teni jongbares biton res.
And so there's also it is also said that the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate kalpas have all come from relying on the spiritual master. So again, pointing to the fact that what is principle? Even these Buddhas of the 1,000 fortunate kalpas have needed to rely on the spiritual master, to rely on the guru.
Teni ngāi nāra, ndōga lamni sāngji gu gōmbā tōgō nāra, ngāka lamni sāngji gu gōmbā dribayi nāra, teni lama giyu shini nā, māpte nā dā tēngi nā, teni kāngsa gōre. Tā rāng tōg sāngji gu gōmbā de tōg tab gare wase nā, te tōg tab mā rēs. And
so, be it sutra or mantra, or tantra, whether one is following the path of the sutra on the way to accomplish Buddhahood, there is no accomplishment without the spiritual master. Or if one is following the tantric path, again, there is no accomplishment of Buddhahood without relying on the guru.
Tatende ta dogu kamneyong tata shiba namse tetawe na ta ngaka kapla tene shelma gugares tene ta jingkur ku zuo de tene karsana tene sangma doji tapa ge jingkur ku zuo de tene ne ta kansu tene lama chakayo res tende indi ta su tene kansu sarku mumchak gombali lama ga ji chamba chose ra di longde ha gu ye sarku sa dong gendra la so ba tende mumchak gome mumse na changgar wa so sarku mumchak gombali lama ga ji chamba chose Namaka chila chanda te tani karsana tani chenap chegre as tani tani songre sakum bunchak gomba se hago song changa mango sakum bunchak gomba di lamaka chila chanda te yak chegre as tani ten chokta cherwa as tani yedi chungkur ku tso se yate tani kogura.
And so if it's the case in the sutras that one needs the spiritual master to rely on for accomplish, there's no reason to even talk about the tantra, as if we look within the tantric practices, the very central figure of the mandala, the center of it all, is the lama, it is the guru. And as there's one quote, I don't know it exactly, but it's something like this, that more than maybe gathering 100,000 of the Buddha statues and images just to meditate for one single moment on the Guru is far more supreme.
Tende aso kansa gure tenda dala tende mudul sopen jimjang song se agi tende mudul te kar se na tende ta lopen se na tende kansa gi yor se na lopen se na tende ta tende lama te la kogre es tende lama la kogre tende kar se na tende mudul te tende yidam gi jisen rang wayang so ma de se ani yidam gi jisen rang gre so ma de tende kanro gi jisen rang gre so ma de mudul te kong jisen rang ba se na mudul lopen jim rang song se 소변 권하게 지선 좀 근데 손바닥에 강하다 고거스나 다 지시바이 바니 조금 모두 버셔봐라 되게 모두 때가서 소변 권이 지선 땅에 달린 남아게 유신이 때네 아니 집에 상지 공부 도버레시 손비던 레스트.
And so again in the text it says that the cities of the Vajra holders follow after the spiritual master, after the guru. And so we need to rely on our Lama. It's not said here in the text that the spiritual accomplishments, these cities, follow after the Yidam, the meditational deity. They don't follow after the Dakini. What is the source? Where do they come from? They come from the spiritual master. So to gain the supreme attainments, then one must rely on the spiritual master. By relying on the spiritual master in this way, then one can follow the path to Buddhahood.
아니 탐문구무도 세대가르스는 시위글리 되니 시와 지바 되니 왕다 작보색이라더니 실지 왕다 같은 리든지 지달이나다 되니 그비아 당원들 냠슬에 요바레스 도저 탐제더니 가르스는 되니 탐문구무도 색이랬어.
And so that was the attainment of the supreme accomplishment, supreme city. Now what would we categorize as the common accomplishments, the common cities? Well, these are the enlightened activities, the four enlightened activities of gaining the activity of peaceful activity or pacifying activity, magnetizing activity, expanding activity, and wrathful activity.
다든이 가르쳤더니 내가 가르쳤는데 되니 되라 이반은 자위 동과 동버셔 sonda. 근데 인데다 뜻다고 돌지더니 로번데라 이바선에 입지 당과 거기에서 입지 당과 왔다. 이 손바이나 다 가르쳐 버려. 선나 자동 주지는 거니 자동 당보대 착가를 시비던 됐어.
아니
자동 주지는 거 당보를 와대.
그래가
당보 착가를 했어. 입지 당송마이나 고마 송에.
입지 당송.
And
so then to hold contempt for the master, to disparage the master, to in some way talk negatively regarding this spiritual master, here is set as this very first root downfall. It is placed here first in the of the 14.
니치 드니 땅 작동 포사게 일대 간를 해서 나타니 로번 남슴 라모 바세 로번 나바슴이요 했어.
And actually, what is this first root downfall in terms of disparaging the master? Well, actually, there are three categories of masters that this, in regards to this.
어야데 심대 가르세나 소소게 되니 왕시사 아니 칠시사 롱시사로 왔다. 왕롱 칠심 시사 더서 담질라 가르세나 든 되게 심대 가르세나 시찬의 종대 대 로번의 차바레스. 그래서 저랑서 로번레스 로번인데 다섯 대라 가르세나 왕시나라 칠시나라 롱시나라 차바 왕롱 칠심 시사가 되네 더슴 더설라더니 강이나 되니 딱 concept 되네. 입지 땅에 거 말해서. 그래서 입지 땅에서는 제 가르쳐 버려서 했더니 자동 주식은 거다. 자동 당보대 착각을 시비던 했어.
So the first category of the spiritual master for whom we should never disparage or hold contempt is any master from whom we've received empowerment or instructions or the reading transmissions or lungs. And so after having received any of these, then these become our Vajra Masters, these become our masters. So whether it is that we have received an empowerment from a guru or instructions on practice or a reading transmission, after having received any of those three, then one should not disparage, never speak negatively about this master, for if one does, then one has transgressed this first samaya, this first pledge.
어야더니 왕당 롱당 칠라서 봐. 왕롱 칠슴 대가서는 마시비가 몰라. 아니 저런서 시다면 시대 라모레스더니 라모레스 하고서 라모레스 아니 되니 왕롱 칠슴 되니 가롱치 시찬이 zon데 콜라마가 끌고 그랬더니 콜라마가 그니 기접지네. 니가서는 데라더니 가서는 니 마바 암더니 아 거기다서니 콜라 메바다 니 지제야 된지 끌어와 되려나서 같은 렌즈 그 말했더니 된지 성바이나 아니 가르쳐 버렸으나 아니 자동 당보됐더니 착각을 했어.
And so before we've received any of these three transmissions, instructions, or empowerments, then there's still some room for choice here. This is not held to this very first root downfall. However, once we do, then one should always have respect for that master. One should never speak down, be disrespectful, disparage them in any way whatsoever. For if we do, then we transgress this first vow.
근데 나서 가서 했더니 다 가서 그랬더니 근데 라마 기비신이 되라더니 라마 기비신이 되더니 딱상셔봐 딱세 제거야 근데 소에 말해서 딱상 제바데 간도에서 했더니 딱상 제바데더니 소소고 왕 출승라서 죽은데 마시긴 하나 근데 딱상 제는 그래서 왕시 주시 뜻시 잡디 타서 되니 간스나 되는 딱세 지식이 더 남아있으니 되니 왕 출승 주시 잡디 타서 되니 딱세 제나 야고지 말했으니 어떤 일인데 타서 딱세 제거야죠 말서 그 다바당 다나당 무기고 거니 때나 되더니 약속되랬을 때
And it said that we should investigate the teacher. We should investigate and analyze, kind of look into this teacher. But this is something that we should do before we have received empowerments and instructions or any transmissions from them. Then at this time, then it is okay to investigate the teacher, check the qualities and so on. But after you have received any of these three, again, empowerments, transmissions, and instructions, then it's not the meaning here that we then investigate the teacher, kind of check them out and so on in that way after we have received those. Because after receiving any of these three, then we should always view the teacher through a faith, pure vision, and devotion. And so this would be the very best thing that we could do.
아야. 근데 맞도 지라가서는 된다. 컨셉을 했더니 라마 교회신이었으니까 교회신이나 때문에 컨셉을 했더니 당보라마 따랑케 봐서 따고 그랬어요. 근데 주동 원시 주시대리나 때문에 주시 죽은 레바던지나 차산디 타서더니 딱상시 세리 돈당 말했어. 그 딱상제 상황이나 때문에 소소 당직 차념 로제와 어떤 일이었어. 근데 이제 소소 원처스마서 같이 시 잔이 종데 이미 다 가르치고 그래서 소소 공원에 가서 그랬더니 근데 이체당 때문에 다 당나지 어떤 일이 상황이나 때문에 소소가 당직 차념 좀 말했을 때 소소문이 하냐면서 랭킹 그 같으니다. 전에 성상 로지 타파세나 어떤 일이 있더니 용답이야나 반도요에서 어떤 일이 있었던 또나
And so first we investigate the Lama to see if this guru is skilled in means. But again, having then entered into any empowerments, instructions, transmissions, and so on, then it's not good for us to investigate at all after this point. And if we do, then we kind of degenerate our vows. And so after this point, then we must have a trust, a belief and faith in our guru. And we must hold this view, and then we will hold our vows. And in this way, then we will be true practitioners, true Vajrayana practitioners. And so I think that this would be, it's a very beneficial to know about this.
근데 이제 소소 라마 세대 간지진이 차고 그래서 나타다 시바야 봐. 왕시 롱시 치듯이 왕long 쳤음들 강왕지 되니 소소라더니 시대리 토베 되는 제가 차요나 아니데 소소 라마 차가요레스 데레마다 라마지 깨다 진보연이나 지수 라마 차가를 뺏으나 되니 말했지 그때 차야라더니 소소 라마 차야라 되는 rel와지고 그랬어 제가다 간지고 있어요 나 왕다 주 되는 시대리나 되는 제가 차라 소소 그 짠이 되는 라마 제마이 와서 당왕지 라마 깨다 진보지요나 대체롱수 라마 차가를 뺏으나 근데 되는더니 땡이 라마레스 소소게지 장니다바 무바지나다 느껴요스 이나요 어떤 일깔서는 소게도 문이게더니 가서 상도지 답에 나니 시야베게 되게 소소게 제바이 베게 라마데 착거스나데 착마레스 때 차버시바다 인지문이 가서더니 레와고 그랬어 라마도 도미 레와지고 그러와 어떤 일이 보레스.
And so, what is it that actually establishes a connection in a way that a teacher then becomes our teacher, our guru, one of our lamas to whom we have a connection? it is, again, receiving any of these three from a Lama. If you receive an empowerment from a Lama, if you receive instructions on practice, if you receive a reading transmission, then this is what actually makes the connection where you are now connected to that Lama. There is now a connection. This is actually one of your Lamas. Even if it's somebody really famous, a big name Lama, and maybe it's somebody that you've never even met before, actually, according to the Vajrayana, this does not make the connection of a teacher as your Lama. You can aspire to become a student, to have this as your Lama. You can aspire to that in the future, and that's okay. But actually, according to the secret Mantrayana, what makes this actual connection between a student and a teacher is these empowerments, transmissions, and instructions. And so that is what is needed to be complete in order to make a connection.
Tende tela garden jigden se niden se simden se tende yores tene garden jigden niden simden se da ono chil simga topson na gar chapson sim chapson wa garden simden res tene tende pen ha tende wa da chenni lo niga shibai na tene gar chare se na tene da garden niden ro ba tene tene chitang lo niga tobai na garden niden de da wa ya shinyo ma garden simden charo da tende na lo khona chi shi na garden jigden se garden jigden niten simden se ne garden simden ge zai lama se da ta den ji wa wa chsim de ge wa dang yong bu ge rest.
And so we have the connections in a way that we can have this kind connection with this Lama in the way that it is all three. We have the kind connection of having received the empowerments, instructions, and transmissions, and in this way, then this is the root Lama. Then there's also, when we have just received the first two of them, then we would have that connection in two ways. For example, just the empowerment and the instructions, or just having just having for example, the reading transmission, then we would have kind of that single connection. But when we have all three, then we have been the kindness of the Lama connected in these three ways, then this is considered the root Lama.
Yeah, 마바지야 아코야 보면 되겠어. 다 콜라더니 고거더니 가르치네. 좁아든지래샤 고거 윤든든지래샤세니 고랑더니 네 고랑더니 든지 입주 땅바이나 지금 말했을 때는 이바세 매바세 그랬어. 되게 가르치 그랬어. 나더니 네 소소라니더니 담직 창님만 그랬어. 소소 그 담직 때더니 쭈니용 그랬어. 담직 창님하고서 어떤 내용 그랬어.
And then we have the second way of pointing, of breaking this vow with our teacher, and in this way, it is when we point out the faults, when we point out any faults of our spiritual master to whom we are connected. If we say that, for example, that that's not a good Lama, their qualities are, such and such, and we're putting them down in any way, then this is a fault. In this way, this is a fault, and we have degenerated our vow.
Oh yeah, that got something. 데비텔라 니바는 짜이도 당버셔서 다든로 소분 남성 강로는 지가 던지지달이나 다냥 타바니 되니 닙지다야 매바든지 제송바이나다 소소라 강착그래서는 자동 동보되더니 되니 자로 그래 송바래서 던지니다 동보파바나 도로샤스.
And so again, if we have disparaged them in any way, spoken negatively in any way, this breaks the first fault, and then we should, through sincerely, from the depths of our heart, then we should confess and admit to have made this first fault.
네, 대셔 관련 디바너 동안 이바 임버주 이바 보관 호로샤스.
And then in the text. moving on to the second point. To deviate from the teachings of Buddha is taught to be the second downfall. Openly admit and confess the second fault.
Desha kalindi basena desha sena kala kogresena desha sena sangjila kogres. Sanjiga katang garson bayina. Di sevade sanjiga kalindi bata sanjiga chugun an sombana janga raso machiba sanjiga katang tani garson galwar batane. Sanjiga katang garson bayina tate karachakaresena ni tsakon nibade chakaresi bitonres.
And so to deviate from the teachings of the Buddha. And so whenever we do something that is not in accord with the words of the Buddha, if we act in any contradictory way, something that contradicts the teachings, then this is not in accord with the instructions of the Buddha. And if that's the case, then we have degenerated then this second vow.
Teni sanjiga kalindi bate tsatong tangbola majamne teni 마찬가지 짝동 니바 가르치데 차바레 세나 되게 진생이 다진 시바이 봐 되니 가르스나 되니 니 상지 코라용 가르스나 가라 되니 좀 그래 되니 라마라 되니 좀 그래 왔더니 되니 양대 다서 되니 가르스나 되니 니 상지 코라용 라마라 되니 되니 좀 거디 다서 되니 가서 그래 되니 다 되니 라마데 되니 조차요 바레스 조차요 다서 되니 라마가 되니 가서 그래 되니 다 담직당 가와 되니 되니 당보데 차바레스 And
so here we have deviating from the teachings of the Buddha is put here in as the second downfall. Why was it not placed first? Why wasn't it actually the first downfall? Well, as we spoke about a little bit earlier, that even the Buddhas have relied on the Lama. The Buddhas themselves rely on the lamas. He also needed to rely on the guru. So that's the reason that the guru, disparaging the guru is the first root downfall, for even the Buddhas rely on the gurus. And so when we act in a way that is not accord with that, with respecting the guru, that's actually the primary fault, and that's why it is placed first. And so again, whenever we do something that may not be in accord with the teachings of the Buddha, then we understand this to then be a downfall of this second vow.
Then Shapache song is not any concept, so with that concept. Yon Tapa, Nita Dumason, some Semlatini, Jubajin, Ratani, Yon Tapan, Semla, Jubajin, Josem Gubanitini, Shasomayina, Shahanatini Garsanata, called Dupak and Nata Sotani, Dr. Weirest.
And so as it says here in the text, to deviate from these teachings of the Buddha, once one does, then one should openly admit and confess this second fault. And so what we need to do here is we need to openly confess, and we need to, from the depths of our heart, thinking, oh, that was not okay, and really be regretful. With a mind of great regret, then we openly admit and confess. And it is said that if we are sincerely, truly regretful and confess in this way, then all negativities can be purified.
Oh yeah. Today in the past, Dipala Tenicalsana, Dipala Yunden Mays, Dipala Yunden Yure. Dipala Yunden Yure, Dipala Yunden Yubatica, Shapastina, Taya Yubate, Dipal Yundense, have a song, but in the destiny, Corotini, Joban Josemna, Shapacheta Haku Boris, Shapachi Soina, Taya Never get the button, Richard Mars.
So, it said there is nothing positive about non-virtue. Is there anything positive about non-virtue? Is there any good point? Well, there's one good thing about non-virtue. It's that we can confess it and it can be purified. And so actually, if we have a mind of deep regret, we can then confess that negative action and it can be purified. There's nothing that can't be purified. So in that way, there is one positive aspect about negativity. It can be purified. And so really, when it comes down to negativity, to non-virtue, there really aren't any good qualities in that. But looking on the side that it can be purified, it can be purified away and confessed, then that's the good thing.
And
so now we move on to the third of the 14 root downfalls. And to be angered with one's Vajra kin and speak viciously to them is the third downfall. Openly admit and confess the third fault.
And
so as tantric practitioners, this is actually something we really need to know. And so we have this term Vajra kin, or Vajra Brothers and Sisters. Vajra Brothers and Sisters are those with whom we have we share the same spiritual master, with those with whom we take teachings together, those who we share the same mandala together. These are our Vajra brothers and sisters, or as the text says, Vajra kin.
Ani lama chibula yatani japsan che sene ni tabata tanang jarwaten tabata na chi te chibu shiba ge dikumares tin so gar senatari tawi lamla nyamde tin kansburta lobjong che sebarwaten nyamde chiba de sola kansburta jingur chigla tin tada shiba yamba durji penjora ba de sola yang tabata tanang tin gar sena chi tante tin hakuko res.
And so it's not enough for us to just have this faith and pure vision in simply the Lama, but also with our Vajra brothers and sisters must also be viewed through this same pure vision and faith and trust.
Durjin Chetro seni tada changsa nyamchigla tani chushi damgashi tanda chingwa da kara chapare senani durji chutro seni ro durji chutra chasan durji chutra chabi ge jitela tani karsana tani ta ramga tani kansu durji chutro to tamchila tani ni tani dana da yeche je goya da peke chimbores rema to kyunla ta ya tani mares khoda maya hoyo mares nyamdo la chushi durji chutra chasarwa ko maya hoyo mare ko tyoban tani yores 콜라더니 쭝는데 요래서니 근데 랍다나 네 컨셉을더니 담직 자는 그러그래서 근데 인다서 근데더니 제가 말해 소소가 담나더니 네 컨셉을더니 남대체는 냠는지고야 된다랬어.
So these Vajra brothers and sisters, those whom we receive teachings together with, those whom we receive the pith instructions together with. Once we have received instructions, or the pith instructions together with another, then they become our Vajra kin, they become our Vajra brothers and sisters. And we should, after that point, we should never look at their faults. We should not look for faults, nor should we point out any faults, thinking, oh my goodness, that one, they're no good. Look what they're doing, they're doing this or they're doing that, and say, oh my goodness, point out that fault. But one should not do that. One should view them with pure perception, pure vision, and have trust in them. And then in this way we carry these activities along our spiritual path.
소소 당제야 요 말에 그걸 쭌데 라고야 그랬더니 대화에 진짜 요 말에 거기 쭌데 라니 가르쳐 버려 판도가 열어 버렸더니 판도가 요 말에 뒤 진짜는 대화 요 말더니 그래서 거기 콜라 가서 쭌 요바 있나요 어떠니 그래서 콜라는 저 시제로 왔더니 눈주 요 시제 콜라 쭌 시제래 눈주 요 시제래 있나요 어떻게 가서는 주 거기 쭌 정말 라니 있더니 가서는 대라 가서는 니 판도동 들어 구바 가요 말스 때다 거기 좀 나처럼 인제와요 말스 그래서 제와요 말 그런 게 요나 그런 게 되네 그 리당나는데 코라라면 그래 마땅하더니 저런 게 좀 됐다니 저랑 소소 겁샷 잡고 이랬거든요 근데 문이 있는데 겁샷 잡고 해요 말스 그런 게 좀 나는 저요나 그런 게 되니 그게 리당나면 코라라면 그래 봐 레마타가 저 대파라더니 고다더니 아 쩐데 요래서니 대가를 따라달래나 지 제리들이나 근데 제거야 되네
And so, even in the case that there is some fault with one of our Vajra brothers and sisters, if there are at fault, it's actually, it's not it's not our business. It's not really, connected to us. So the possibility that there are faults with others, that is possible. But actually, is there any reason to point it out? Is there any benefit in pointing this out? No, there's not. And, furthermore, it's not related to us, it's not connected to us. And actually, it is their own karma. This karma will need to ripen upon them solely. There is no dividing up our karma like I'll, take on that fault, he can take on mine. We all, experience the ripening of our own karmas, and it has nothing to do with us. Actually, it is theirs, their action, and theirs to ripen upon them. So. It is possible that there could be faults in others, but it is of no benefit, not useful, and there's no need at all to point any of these things out.
근데 이제 다섯 가지는 동바이나 다 소소하게 가서 그랬더니 다 마다비게 나와서 거라 마다비게 나와고 뭔가 그런데 나와리 마도 운이 준던데 요 말에 했었네 그런더니 다 당한 건 거야. 근데 이 당한 건 거야. 진짜 가르쳐서는 저당 빡세야 돼. 냠슬래는데 당고 컴바고 고라고 고니야 더니 나오나 되고라. 지고지기 거라. 지고대 거라다 당하는 거더니. 그 당하면 소에나 다 지시바이 맞죠. 그 람문이 되다 식다고 말했어. 근데 인데 다서 막 그거라. 지고 거라 당하 차거라. 근데 인데 다서도 당하면 나냐면서 렌트고 말. 근데 이제 남마라더니 가서나 무기 당하 요바지 부비 그 말에 시바이 봐. 되니 소소 그 도지 추적도서 담치라요 가서나 당하가 무기 고그랬어. 어떤 일이었어.
And so if we do happen to see a fault, then we understand that this is actually an impure appearance. Not any truly established truth in it whatsoever, but rather just an impure appearance. And in this way, then we're viewing it through pure vision. And in this way, we actually enter the door to this true, authentic practice, as we were speaking about earlier, the divisions of being just a facsimile of a practitioner or entering the true path. And in this way, when we view these things through the pure appearances, then this is what we need to do, and this is entering the real path, authentically entering the path. And it is not just with the spiritual masters that we regard all actions in their with pure vision, but it is also with all of our Vajra brothers and sisters that we view all of their actions with pure view. And in the words of my perfect teacher, it is said that we should view our Vajra brothers and sisters as the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We should view them as the enlightened gods and goddesses. And so when we have these others around us, then we perceive them in this way. So if we are viewing our Vajra kin as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, will we perceive any faults? Are the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas stained by any faults at all? And so, no, we will not see any fault whatsoever, and we will not fall sway to denigration whatsoever.
상지당 장주sem바 늘지 추적 차선 상지당 장주sem바 강세를 때네 인담은 되게까지 세게 요말했을 때네 인담은 잡을지 요말했어 소소문이 느시자 느시가 상지당 장주sem백이 느시 연하다 거기 쭌된 통고말와 아니 쭌만 통소하이나 아니 당직 장님 로그래베 로그말와 어떤 데인데 나도 당직 장님 조사가 공라 이코랑 내가 장로가 그런 든지했을 때
So it's not the point whether our Vajra brothers and sisters are the enlightened Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or not. It is from our perspective that we are viewing them in this very way. We're not questioning whether they are or not. We are perceiving them from our side. We are perceiving all others as the enlightened Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In perceiving others as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we will not see any faults. Having not seen any faults, will we put them down in any way, denigrate them, or speak negatively in any way? No, we won't, because we've eliminated the basis for finding any fault and eliminated the basis for transgressing this downfall.
남지 그 sentient 탐질 하던 화목을 하시는 세트업 신다고 시바이바 대단 지구에서 하던 화목을 하시는 세트업이 되는 던지지 하던 화목을 하시는 게 시작 송바이나 다가르선다 되는 컨셉을 던져고 차방된 용사의 좀 매바 창조가 그런 던지지에서 던지지 송바이나 와서 담식다 장님족이 싸매야 됐더니 일단이 그거는 되는 매바 그런 던지자가 그래서
And as we spoke about last evening, then we view all beings as the gods and goddesses, the female and the male deities. And in doing so, then we have eliminated that basis for us to be gathering the karma that comes from attachment and aversion. And so in the same way, when we are viewing our Vajra brothers and sisters as the gods and goddesses, then again, there is no way that we can degenerate this vow.
든리든이 다가다리는 든리 랍송가 있나 그래서 그 컨셉을 근데 담지 자님 그래서 되게 가르쳐는 소소기 냠내나 판독 강해요 말했어. 그래서 그런 소리 고야 때 냠내 공패라 주고 냠내나 판독 보고 그래. 근데 나다서다 던져서다나 드니 연된 도비야 메발라 소소 가르쳐나 우니 그래서 아니 냠슬랭게용이 자자 친구냠슬랭게용이 조파 친구냠슬랭게요서 간이 드니 주던데 냠슬랭게요서 돈도 가르쳐나 도지 던져라 소파라 영더니 가르쳐나 준 따게나 지 컨셉을 했더니 그러나 대성바이나 다 대가르쳐나 나 도지 탑이다 지시바이 마 그랑의 증년 잠지그래마 또 그랑 운이대 냠슬랭타 하고 비어마 하고서 근데 인디 다서다 드니 컨셉을 했더니 어떤 일이었어.
And so again, once we are together receiving instructions under one Lama, we are in the same mandala, where we have taken empowerments together, reading transmissions together, or received instructions together. Then after that, it is not good to point out any faults or deficiencies or problems in these others, saying, oh, this one, they're really kind of no good in this way, or they have this problem, or did you hear about this and they did this or they did that. If we do that, then we degenerate this vow, we break this vow. And actually, this does not benefit our practice. This doesn't benefit our practice at all. And what is the reason that we are engaging in our Dharma practice? We are engaging in our Dharma practice in order to progress and to gain qualities, to gain the good and the positive attributes. It's really not enough for us to say, oh, I'm a practitioner, I'm a tantric practitioner, and I'm a practitioner of the great Mahayana, and I do this practice or that practice simply through words. If we do that, then we have become what we discussed earlier, a kind of a mere reflection of a practitioner, somebody who just has the outer appearance of a practitioner, but not the true practitioner. And so it's the true practitioner that we aim to be. And so we, in this way, should not point out the faults, look for faults, point out the faults, or speak negatively about our Vajra brothers and sisters.
자자 전부 땅 조파 전부라 소반도서 탐주다 냠는 삽슈데와 근데 냠스는 아니다 추 자자 전부 땅 조파 전부라 소바다 추 삽슈데가래 nga gowiose ene ngite 냠슬랭 gowiose 그러거든 그래서 냠슬랭 제발라 냠슬랭 다 하고 그러더니 레마톡스 지르다 인증민이 자자 전부 땅 조파 전부 냠슬랭 요세네더니 냠스 렌타더니 니 하마고 송바이나 되게 니바 전부 땅 초랑다 판독 전부지 연구 말아 연습 던져졌어. 네 하고요. 저런 가락사나 가락 심슈 대산이 쪽인데 사그래. 가락 저런 가락 간디 산이 쪽. 가락 지라 신부 매바직 담년 쪽인데다 가락 심슈 지 담년 쪽. 심슈 담년 쪽이다. 근데 뭐 정말 찍봐서 가락 직사나 가락 심슈 담년 쪽이다. 된다 왜 찍가서 이런 속에 냥슬 내역이 추대까지는 되네. 삽슈쟁 하다 망가 빼면서 삽슈쟁 하다 톱고긴데 하다 고긴데 있다는 거예요. 또 도바당 왜 찍고긴 그 말. 냥슬 렌당하고 그래.
And so these the teachings of the great perfection and Mahamudra are the most profound. They are the highest teachings. They are the most profound. They are extremely profound teachings. And most of us really think that we need to practice the most profound. We think, oh, I need to practice Dzogchen and Mahamudra. They are the best teachings. They are the highest teachings. I need to do those practices. I need to learn those. I need to have those practices. But actually what it is that we need is we need to know how to engage in those practices. If we don't know how to authentically practice, then they're not powerful. They're not beneficial. There's no use in that. We must know exactly how to practice. And actually, if we make an example, most of us, if we have a choice between food, do we want something that is just kind of just okay, or do we want something really delicious? If you had a choice, which would you choose? And Rinpoche said yes. He said we all want the most delicious food, and in the same way, we want the most profound teachings. We really want to engage in the profound teachings, but just wanting it isn't enough. Just wanting it isn't what we need.
conseguire tene covid dingla tene samlo ta shos tene chi cha na tene lo ma de jirwa lo ma de de da nga goya de rim de tang gre ten re ma re chote choro ma ta ba janda kaya nyam ne ma chi ma ta pa chi bu gom na de ge ding covid ding chi bu sam ta na de ge cho lo de ga ma re a go so tene nga yin chi mi zo chi nyam se ne mi cha che mi ma bo chi ha ku gu ye tang gre tene re mi se de go ba sam go ma ra tene doba tene sosola tene kars nga yakshu de go tangarwa tene rese kasa chorang ge terang tangara ni terang de ma matapa chamba shegi chorang so matapa gom shosana ni samalo de mar lo ma de tene yong res.
So there, are some people who think or may feel like, oh, I've just meditated on impermanence. Or I've, simply then contemplated the suffering of samsara, but that's all I've done. Is that enough? They're not satisfied. It's not enough. No, they think, no, I need Dzogchen, I need Mahamudra, I need the best. Just simply meditating on impermanence is not where they want to leave it.
Tende ji xie ni ben ngi terang de ma ta ba ji xie ra ta ne ko ri ding ji ko la de ne de xie ji jang ne ja sa ya na so kan de zhuwa yong ge se na kala xin bu me ba ji zhe cha ta ji ba cha ge se kala xin bu me ba ji de ni ne zhe cha na ka che de kala de xin bu me de nga go ya de re ni san yang zhu men de se ge ba ha de ni den zhe bu che ge ra ta ne zhe zi jie sa re da ma re se.
And so in that way, it's a little bit like that, food that wasn't so delicious. That, one who has, I've studied impermanence, I've contemplated on the sufferings of samsara, but that's all I've done. For them, it's a little bit like, that not getting that delicious food and still wanting it. It's, they're still kind of left wanting more.
Tende res tende yang da so tene pen na tene mata ba tang ko ri ting la sam no ta to so tham che kar sen na tene ne nga so nyam ne ga ma se ta ba to so tham che nam je na ngun ro tene lo do nam je se ge ya tene to so chu chong chong che ma se nyam ne ga ma se ba chu ro ma se te ya ko tem bo yo na nyam ne cha sa ya ko yong ba tende de ta de lo jong gram ba se lo jong gram ba to so ya ko chin sam no ta ne kar sen na tene lo jong gram ba to so tene sam ro sa de ta so ne chu cha cha chen bo ta zok chen la so ba tende ji da na tene ta nyam se len ta kar nyam se len thun na tene ko ram tene ya ko res tende ji da nyam se ne ga da wa to yo ba tende res.
But actually, these are really foundational teachings, meditating on impermanence and contemplating the suffering of samsara. These are the very foundations of our practice that make our practice strong and stable. For example, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma. This is actually what assures that our future practice will go well. We need to train the mind in gradual stages. When we train the mind in gradual stages, there comes the time when we can directly receive these teachings and enter into the practices of Dzogchen and Mahamudra. There are the oral instructions for these practices, and the time will come, but the very foundation to make sure that this goes well are these foundational teachings.
근데 알아서 나다 주사모 고인덱스 아니다 주삽슈데 상가 도지 타파라 같은 나 도지 타파고 주 냠세 라 렌송바 근데 인송바이나 다다지 갈선 디그 자동 주진하는 샤비그 자동 당보드 같은 자동 동보동 근데 자동 스마트서 담치더니 배 알아서다 배 개침보래다 어떤데 있는다 또 설라요 어떤데 소중지달이 삼로 땅에 근데 죄송하이나 또 라무니 되다더니 식다가 람그즈니라 식바마임바 내가 상호도지 냐 타바냠셀랭 건가 내가 좀 그런 문이 되라 식탑이야 그거는 제가 된데 요래서 문이 되라 식송바이나다 무드비야 문이 돼 토그라봐 무드 상호도 라무니 되라 식나 무드비야 문이 돼 토그 말왜 근데 무드 즈마데 토그 말했을 때 무드 문이 돼 토그랬어.
And so then we really all many think that I need the most profound of the teachings. I need the Vajrayana teachings. I need to be a Vajrayana practitioner. But here, with the 14 root downfalls of the Vajrayana, if we, for us, as Vajrayana practitioners, it is the first and the third. The first and the third are really very important points. And so you should study these well and think about these well, these Vajrayana points of holding the vows. And if you do so, then you will be this true practitioner, rather than the mere reflection, the facsimile practitioner. You will be the authentic, the real practitioner. You will enter into the true Vajrayana. And you will enter into it in a way where you will receive the true accomplishments, the true siddhis, rather than any false kind of accomplishment. But having entered in such an authentic way, then one will obtain the true accomplishments.
람그 즈닌 냠셀레나 지바 가르토 그래. 지바 양탄이 지바게 즈닌한테 토 그래. 지바 즈닌한테 반토 그래. 반토마에 근데 나서 가르스나 라무니 tel라시 상관도지 타벨라 무니 tel라시나 다 가르스나 지바 무니 토 그래. 람그 즈닌 tel라나 tel이 지바게 즈닌한테 토 그랬네. 어떤 데서
And so if we practice kind of in an outer appearance, kind of in a non-sufficient way, in a false path, in just the outer reflection of practice, then what is the benefit? What's the fruition of practicing in a kind of just an external appearance way? Well, the fruition of that will also be just like a mere reflection. It will not be a true fruition. It will simply be the mere reflection of a fruition. And will that be? Is there any benefit in just kind of a reflection of a fruition? And so, no, there's no real benefit in that way. So, however, when we authentically practice, when we truly practice, then this brings us to obtaining the true fruitions.
that's interesting. 근데 다다니 숨바지더니 semjin namla 니버지가 숨바고 semjin namla 잠바봉 지와임바 제리송 지와 포파토샤스.
And so now that concludes the third of the 14 root downfalls, and we move to the fourth. To relinquish one's love for sentient beings, the Buddha taught as the fourth downfall. Openly admit and confess the fourth fault.
근데 자동 나와대 가능성이 sentient 같은 가서 그랬더니 다 잠바더니 뽕세나 가서 그랬더니 잠바당 냥제당 아니 된다고 참여제세요. 잠바 냥제 가와 땅 뇽세니 된다고 그랬더니 다 참여제세요. 다 도서가 되는 가서는 참여제고 거니 냠는 제고요래. 된다 인다서다 도서한테 가서 그래. 뽕송바이나 그 가르쳐버려서는 아니 되게 자동한테 지반대 착가르치기도는데스.
And so to relinquish one's love for sentient beings, loving kindness is a very important quality for us to hold, and actually we need to train in immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity, the four immeasurables. And simply abandoning it, relinquishing one's loving kindness for a sentient being, then this is what transgresses this fourth vow.
Deva Danduka Chamba Secret, Dinga Tanduka, Yang Jay Secret, Tunda Garson, what the Yoris. That take us and a dead Marasu Tapa Chimbu down, Taninga Durji Tapanyam Selenka, Tati, Suzu Namata, Penjata, Chibuda, you went to Kamaras. Tai sentient Sama, Latanda, Chambata, Yang Jiggy Simba, Jidal, and Yaman Chigoya, that and the Chakayores.
So when it comes to our family and our children, so we really love them. It's really easy for us to have loving kindness and compassion. We really love them very much. We want them to be happy. We don't want anything bad to happen to them. We don't want them to have any suffering. But as practitioners of the Vajrayana, then it's not sufficient for us to have this for our family only, for our close ones, but we need to feel these very same things for all sentient beings. The wish for all sentient beings to have happiness, that's the loving kindness. The wish for all sentient beings to be separated from suffering, which is compassion.
Ziva Chishuda, goes on any Jana degrees, so Mata Vajrayana, Tambo so Mateka Senatini, Dingata, Tava, Devata, Danduka, Tenduga, Logit, Ratani, Logit, that they like us and the Nugat and the Jambata, Yongia, Bogun, Aviana, Tenikas, and Palmarstan, Tenimanatan, some Gini Pat and the Jirva, and the Gini Ja, and the Jani Tom, and the Tenichi Daddy, and the Penatanita. America America Sacha Yung Subsopatani, Deva Town, Dinga Town Trava, I think the Lord Jango rest in it. The need so in Natani, the Chibuya Maimba, and Zambalanga Sentient Samatan, Deva Town, Dinga Town, Tanda, the Richi Delina, Tanita, Kuriga Sentient Sama, Deva Tamba, Dinga Tanda, Tantrici, Lojet, Jachel Churches on that, so the Karchapares, and it's some men say at the Chaparis, some mepa. Jamba Salmeba, Yoji Salmeba said, the Richi Chaparis, Remato, Lord Chorevaji, Salmeba Chakareves, and the young woman.
And so how is it that we train the mind using these four immeasurables, these four contemplations? Well, first we pick someone to whom we feel very close, or whom we really have the most love for example, our mother. And we generate the mind that thinks that, oh, I wish that she would always have happiness. May she always have the greatest of happiness. And then may she always be separated from suffering. And we train the mind in this way. We engender this kind of quality in our mind that wishes from the depths of our heart for her happiness, and that she may be free from suffering. And then we extend it outwardly. When we can generate this very well with the one person that we love very much, then we can generate this out and move on from that one person to another person and train in exactly the same way. And then we can extend it to 10 people and think, may this group of 10 all be completely happy and free of suffering. And then we move to 100 people and 1,000 people, training in exactly the same way. But then this is not enough. We are then move it on to all people in America, may everyone in America have happiness and be free from suffering. And actually this is the way that we train our mind with these thoughts, with these contemplations and meditations. And then we can move to the whole world and then all beings in the realms of samsara. And so when we can do this, then now this is what is called immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion. For it is love without limit, it is compassion without limit. When we have trained in this way, it is not a partial love or a compassion with any bias or bounds whatsoever. There are no limits.
Oh yeah. 동비에 왔더니 남진 동비에 왔더니 되니 semjen tamche tene dewa tang dewi je tang tembar che ji sene tenga so chame je te ke tambo go ni lo jang ni dong ge yorwa tene te ching dong ba ji ku ma ya ba lo ge te ke tene lo jong che ta lo jong ge tene kar sene ta so so ge ji la nyam na yang ta ba chi tene yo ya la lo jong ge ren ba ta so tamche tene nyam na che ta ha ko go re tene che so ya na so so nyam na te ta sa ho cha re tene ji de ta so ta tene ta so cha ni ma so pa o ta tene yo sa me ba tene yo re.
And so we usually recite the words in the prayer of the four immeasurables. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. But we shouldn't just recite the words, but we actually work with the mind in the way that we're training the mind to establish this as an authentic a feeling and a true meaning. And so we should not do this in words only, but should really meditate on this way and gradually through the stages. And then in this way, actually, one will progress through the stages, and this mind training will become very clear. And then it is very likely then that one will not be transgressing any of these downfalls.
총총직 말하거든. 근데 이제 전부 찍거든 가서는 냠면 저선 추가를 냠설랑나 됐더니 진납 첨부터 니바 첨부터 작게 했어. 내가 속에서 뭐 당당 가르치 그랬어 놨더니 나야 보용 거근데 나라 남도 지고 근데 그랬더니 시 니바 총총서 잘했어. 하고서 진납더니 매바서 작게 니바 돼. 뒤라 나 찍고 남도 용할 수 없어. 나 대화도 나 등가 당트고 근데 그랬더니 되겠더니 넘바대고 알아서 죽은 진짜 매반서 시작하래. 네가 총총서 소소 끝도 딱 보자잖아. 근데 이제 다서 주님서 렌동세한테 되니 말했어. 근데 이제 다다 컨셉을 다다 집안 남진 거 던져게 됩니다. 그놈은 되니 넘버 딱 봐. 근데 이제 친구 그거는 냐면지나 네 진짜 친구를 했어.
So training in this way, for example, with the four immeasurables, mind training, a training in contemplation which turns the mind to the benefit of others. And training in this way actually helps us to expand our mind, to give us a vast, open mind, to really expand it in a way so that whatever practice actually then thereafter that we engage in will be extremely powerful, and we will receive many blessings with such a vast and open mind that we have been generating. Usually the way we think is, oh, I need to practice the Dharma, I'm going to enter the path, I'm going to do this or that. Actually, this is a very narrow-minded view, and it's the way we are most habituated, the way we often think. But in this way, it's a very constricted view, it's a very constricted mind. Whereas training in the four immeasurables will completely open our minds in a way. In this way. When our minds are very narrow-minded, then we don't receive the blessings of the Dharma. And when we practice the Dharma, then we need to practice in this way with a vast motivation, with a perfectly pure intention, and in practicing this way we will receive many great blessings.
Today, choose some in big Pantopeg, Nibayamas, choose some Yamselengos, Ami Charja Chimuniam Selengios, and Zopa Chimuniam Selengios. Take so can not you down the Haku Buddhist. Can not you down the Hamakosana, choose some Tenicars and Telatini, Antoni Batan, Tinta Burbesina, take a Capores. So what in Kanhunatani, Chukanongase, Jachimbuyo Bata, Simchilkase, Jachimbuyana, Chute Sesa Grestin.
So the profundity of the Dharma isn't simply based in the Dharma itself. Now the Dharmas are profound. The great perfection of Dzogchen is an extremely profound Dharma, as is Mahamudra. But it's actually what we need to know is we need to know our motivation. We need to know our intention. We need to understand our mind, because it is actually through this vast intention, this perfectly pure motivation, depending on the scope of this, then will follow the scope of the profundity of the Dharma and blessings that follow.
Well, you were saying the Guru was basically first, and the Buddha was second, that Buddhists could get trained by the Guru to become Buddha. But I'm wondering, in the case of the Buddha, who was the Buddha's first Guru?
Sangye tanggu sure Sangye tanggu shawe lam me corona sungwa kese lam me corona tende sungwa Sangye korang guruji guru tanggu sure es
Sanjiga,
lare
Sanjiga
kegel sure
Sanjiga Gergen Sans,
lare
Sanjiga Tene, Gergende Tene Gatsana, Council, Sanjiga Munta. Sanji yang 당번이 상지 말에서 하고서 당번이 상지 좀전 있다고 빼잖아 당번이 상지 말에서 나랑 소다 찍발했어. 나랑 소 찍발했어. 근데 뭔가 가르쳐는 근데 나랑 소 찍발에 리기 때문에 뭐 때문에 광서 그랬대. 찍었더니 아니 람라 로니 근데 지나 기회신이 때니들 예랑보 빠다 기회신이 때려와 예랑보 빠다 기회신이 때니 기회신이 망보 때니들 대왕 찍말이다. 기회신이 망보 때니들 상지 고모 잡아랬더니 상지가 가르스는 까르와 처음에 쓰마 촉상세라더니 도다 뜻에는 까르와 처음에 쓰마 촉상바 근데 나서더니 가서는 당보 나서다 찍바이 맞지가 니고 남라서 던지지다리다 근데 기위신 땐 기위신이 그 당한 염설은 던지지다리 상지가 고모토바레스 근데 이다 상지가 고모토버시바다 당보 기위신이 땡고요레스 기위신이 찍라 맞된 찍더니 가서는 그런 거 라식 세고 라또 그 홉스지 상지 공방세 지 드비아당 리요레스나 대요 말을 요레스네.
And so first the Buddha was actually the same as us. Before he was the Buddha, he was the same as you and I, and he needed to study along the stages of the path and train along the stages of the path, relying on the spiritual master. He had to train along the stages of the path for a long time. It is said that it takes 3 incalculable eons in order to do that. So the Buddha, actually, the first teacher of the Buddha was the spiritual master, as we were talking about earlier, that there is no Buddhahood without the relying on a spiritual master. There is just no all of a sudden going from an ordinary being to the state of Buddhahood.
상지 당번이 가르스나 상지 샤차타바 당번이 샘진직자리 마했나? 당번이 상지에나 그게 신이 땡고 말했어. 좀 된말했어. 그 당번이 그 당번 상지 말했어. 그 남라서 그래 봤더니 말랑전하고 샘진직인데 따서다 샘진직 상지 톱거라 봤더니 샘진직 상지 톱고데 아니 남라서 빌다. 했더니 남냠슬 렘버시발라 다 했더니 라마 기신이나 땡고 그래서 라마 기신인 백가르스나 했더니다 람그조 했더니 기신인 세레 했더니 기신인 세레 가르쳐 봐르스나 다루이가 람그조 대차바르스더니 람그조 기신인 센터리 요레스.
So if he were first a Buddha, like from the very beginning, was already an enlightened being, then you're right, he would not have needed to rely on a spiritual master. There would have been no teacher preceding him. But actually, the Buddha needed to practice just like we do, in exactly the same way. It is we sentient beings that practice along a prescribed path, and then we gain Buddhahood. Then we enter Buddhahood. And how do we do that? And how did the Buddha Shakyamuni do that? He did that through relying on spiritual masters. And it's actually, it is said that the spiritual master is principle, that the spiritual master is actually the root of the path.
뭐 샘진이 인 아니 람 냠스 랭고가 근데 샘진지 가서는 다르게 람드비 온데 타서다 인증민이 교육신이 땡고 그래서 맞대나 서지 공부도에 답이요 말했으니 따뜻하게 얘기했어.
And so this is depending on that one is first a sentient being. If one is first a sentient being, then one engages in the spirit, in the path, and then obtains Buddhahood. If they're already a Buddha, then there is no engaging in the path. It is first the engaging in. If it is a sentient being, an ordinary being, then they engage in the path to gain Buddhahood. And how do they do that? They do that with through reliance on the spiritual master.
Thank you so much.
Did that answer your question?
Only that it seems like the first Buddha discovered the root.
Yeah, I thought I didn't quite get your question. Now I see what it is. Okay.
So, like he was mining for it, like he was picking through stuff.
Yeah, now I understand.
And then the guru represents that sort of discovery process by having already been discovered. So he represents the teachings to be given to the rest of us.
Okay, so I'll try. Then if I miss something, please help me so that Rinpoche can understand very well your question. I'm going to drink masong. Ani tuba dire pana the Shakya-tupa, Sangye Shakya-tupa la pela jana, ani Sangye Shakya-tupa di Sangye Tangshir yimba shagna. Dene kong Sangye chakpe ngonla, ani di lam yomare, di ngonla ani Sangye yomare, chetsang di Sangye gopang yaki Topyaki chedo ani di lam yomare kong di Sangye tangshure kong Sangye ma Sangye gopang
당본이 상지 말해라 당본 샘진을 해라 마 샘진을 받은 샘진을 lam 쓰는 거라 당본이 상지이나
dine lam kare kong di Sangye di lam yomare kong di tangpo semchenyina kong semchenyina di ngonla di Sangye mepa latine
상지 메바다 때니
latine dine kong kare
상지가 요래 상지 좀 된데 남전 쉬어봤을 때
아니 얘는 디
당보
유나
당보 유나요 아마 계신인다 때니 요청을 상지기 라마 계신인 상지기 들어가서야 되더니 라마 계신인 상지기 들어가 라마 계신인 그 주종 같은 저 같더니 그 상지 맞춰 봐 여러 같더니 그 뒤쪽 때나 내나 샘진데 들셔야 된 드리야게 뒤쪽나 되비요나 그 라마 계신인 콜라테네 니가서 난가랬을 때니 딜이 열고 말세요. 대신 딜이 열고 말세요. 지금 요 같은 질라만 하고요. 딜이 열고 말세. 딜이 매요서야 될 거잖아. 이거 가서 때나 코랑 냠슬이야 뒤쪽나 해비요나 샘진 잔달라 tanne karsana lamtonghe menayo kogo mona karsana lamtonghe lama gyishini nangare hakoso tenduchi samtang gore karsana ko lam yamsane tisula let charwatane ko li tawatane te yo charwatane pena chimnote yona 남카게 다위 승인도 잘 그래 하고서 칠노 때 매송이나 남기 다위 승인도 잘 그말해 들으래서 칠노 때 가서 요송이나 따르기 그람 동행 그 비비신인데 남그 때 가서는 나와 그때 남기 다와 나오신 거 코너들이 거다 난가랬어
근데 대패기 상게
그래서 네베게 상지가 주 상지 당 자주 선비 주바고 가는 비비신인 그래서 거는 콜라 남도 지그래야 돼 근데 이제 소소 노동 담바 소소 되게 주년은 되게 리당 몰람 되라더니 유명라 되라라고 말하거든요. 근데 최근 너여나 되니까서는 다윗이 잘 그래서 봐. 지금 맨날 다윗이 잘 그래. 대잘 그 말했을 텐데 인터서. 됐더니 내가더니 가서 그때 상지다 장지 semba yume ka kacha mare sanji ta chanje semba gadi na yores hagoso gadi na yores takwa yorten yena yongtene semjin la tene ugu muba yume ta soso no tang tamba yume te la tene rali then tene jagure.
And so actually the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are always present. There has not been a time where there has not been the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. So when a student is ready to enter the path due to their karma and their connections, when they are ready to enter the path and receive the teachings, then even if there is not the present time Buddha, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas will appear in the form of the Guru, in the form of a spiritual master, to those that aspire, to those that have the karma, to those that have the connection, and for whom the time is right. The Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, they will appear to lead that one on the path. Similarly, as if when there is a pool of clear water on the ground, then the moon can then reflect in that, that water being the student who is ready to receive the blessings of the Buddhas. But when there is no water there, then there is no reflection, there is no emanation of that moon into the water. But when a student is ready, as was the very first, as Shakyamuni Buddha was ready to enter the path, is like that pool of water appearing on the ground, ready for the reflection to emanate.
지난 게 다와. 지는 메나 지난 게 다와 여러 배.
메나.
이 말에 대 공설을 연나 하고만.
And so if there is no, let's say there is like a pot on the ground, if there is no water in it, will the moon's reflection appear in it? Rinpoche is asking you the question.
I wouldn't say so.
Well, 아니, 내봐줘.
이 말은 지난 게 다위 지닌데 가서는 아마 계시는 것들이 그러면 전부 여나 콜라더니 가서는 다위 지닌데 잘 그래 하고서 던져고 되니 가서는 다바땅 무게 소소 리땅 까바테더니 지진데 상하 영성가 있나? 되니 가서는 고궁몰라 상지기 특지된 난거래서 하고서 상지기 특지된 난거래. 근데 콜라더니 리땅 까바더니 메송 들자 메송에는 들시다 양선들 저거 봐. 되니 진노 메나 저다 남칼라 저거 봐더니 마토더니 살았더니 진단 동 진다 다비즈니 요마와 진노 메나 저다 칼라더 치지용 그 다와 양선 없으리 치지용 그 치지용 그 다와 양선 없으리 치종아 저득지든 접제지네 남기 다와 때문 통화 장로가 와 던지랬어. 양 들샤 요나야 사양한 그랬더니 치지기니 니 숨지네요 나와 제르제르가 뭐 던져부터니 가르스나 했더니 양 들샤 요나야 뭐만 남지 난 그래 하고서 또 교육신 던지랬어.
And so that's right, it will not reflect into the water or into that pan if the water isn't there. And again, this water appearing in the vessel is like the students who are ready to receive the teachings, and the appearance of the reflection in the water is like the spiritual master who is there to guide the students along the path. And if there is a student who with faith and devotion and the correct karmic timing and connection is ready, then the teacher will manifest. The teacher will manifest just as the moon and the stars can then reflect into the water. If there is no water there, the moon and the stars, they're still there, but they don't manifest down in appearance because they don't have that condition, that second condition to manifest down for. And it's actually said also in the scriptures that at the time when there are no more students, then the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, they will kind of fade away, they will fade back. But then when students then do reappear at the time or the eon, when students then do reappear, then gradually the teachers again will reappear.